It's All Hallows Eve, and there's a match that will make you believe. Four monsters that could only be loved by a mother will do battle in a ring, in a fight like no other. Mark Henry, Kane, the Great Khali, and Big Daddy V are ready to toil in an ECW Monster Mash Battle Royal. Live.
And with that, welcome to another action-packed, exciting hour of the Smoky Mountain Wrestling Re-Watch-Along Project. This is podcasting the way it used to be and the way you like it. This show is a production of the Something Else Podcasting Network, and it is episode number 079 of Smoky Mountain Wrestling from July 31st, 1993, taped July 19th, 1993, at the Whitley County Middle School in Williamsburg, Kentucky. My name is Arya, and joining me, as always, is the Stevie Richards British co-host to my Stevie Richards. It's Trae. Trae, how the heck are you today?
Happy birthday!
Thank
Don't
you.
care about
Thank you.
Aya. That's not important. It's your birthday. That's what matters.
Well, it's my birthday when we're recording this. My
Yes,
birthday's
that is the time. That is the time that I am living in.
yes. So we're not into the future. We're not,
Not
recording
yet.
it. We're not recording this Thursday morning at 5 a.m. when it drops.
We need to get our hands on that temporal ham radio that everybody uses to listen to our shows.
Yeah, it's just that would be nice. It would be helpful. Um,
Yeah.
and also, as the intro may indicate, we're also going to be talking about the ECW Monster Mash Battle Royal from 2007. Trae, was it everything you dreamed it could be?
I saw it at the time, and then I don't know. It was okay. This was upsetting to realize. 2007 was in fact 17 years ago. I was
Yeah,
more than a year out of high school when that match happened. 2 years
I,
out of
I,
high school when that match happened.
I was 23 years old. It's
I was 20, and that I actually I don't suppose you watched the whole show. I did because I'm a fucking freak.
I did not. I just went on YouTube and looked for the Monster Mash Battle Royal.
I really came to like WWE ECW and about like when they abandoned any pretext of being like anything but a WWE C show, I actually came to really enjoy it as a C show. But that
Mhm.
was like 2008, 2009. They were not there yet.
Y- do you remember the feud with Miz and Morrison versus Jimmy Wang Yang and Shannon Moore? Those were
I
some fun.
did.
Those are some fucking great tag team matches.
So on this show, The Miz wrestled John Morrison in a match to determine the number one contender for CM Punk's ECW championship. And it was short and it was not very good. And I was baffled because I did not remember them having a little bit of a feud before they became a team like the next year.
This is why I remember that because Matt Hardy and MVP were the tag team champions on SmackDown, and it was one of those things that
Yes.
everybody knew they would break up at some point because they're feuding, and they're also tag team champions. So at some point, MVP is going to turn on him and cost him the titles. Well, one week the spoilers come out, and it's actually in about 2 weeks. 2 weeks after this, it comes out that Miz and Morrison, who were feuding on ECW uh, won the tag team titles. Then MVP demanded an immediate rematch. And then MVP turns on Matt Hardy and costs him the titles. And I remember when I read that, I'm like, this is bullshit. This did not actually happen. This is somebody lying on the internet. And you're not allowed to lie on the internet either. But
Nah.
no, this is that's how it actually occurred. And it's funny because Miz and Morrison feuded until the moment they became tag team champions.
Yeah, I kind of vaguely remember the thing as you described it now. Yeah. Also, well, the other thing I remembered, Jimmy Wang Yang's entrance music is an all-timer. It's fucking great.
Every so often, WWE would come out with like a great theme song at the time. Like Deuce and Domino had great music too.
Yes. Oh my God. There was never like there was a version on it on some CD, but it was sped up. They didn't have like they never released the actual version until like those Jim Johnson WWE Uncaged albums. It's on one of
Yeah.
those. That's
Come,
an all-timer right there.
come on, let me take you back. Turn back the
Turn
hands
back
of
the hands
time.
of time. That's when I
That's when I
discovered you.
discovered
That's
cool.
when I
That's
made you
when I made
mine.
it mine.
My pants wouldn't
Um,
be too tight. That's how I learned to fight.
that was around the time Rob Conway had the Conway music.
Yes.
Just look at
Just
me.
look at me. Oh.
Oh my God. Would you call it amazing or amazingly awful theme songs?
Well, the Rob Conway one,
I
so
think
bad it's good.
I would say all three of them like have their so bad it's good quality to it.
I reject that. I
Yeah.
think the Jimmy Wang Yang and the Deuce of Domino are like legitimately fantastic.
Okay, we need to press pause because my job is calling me for some reason.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's press pause and you hang up for a second.
Okay.
Okay, welcome back. So yeah, my job decided to call me to ask about a fucking personal day that I took last week. To ask if I still needed that personal day from last week.
Did you take the personal day last week?
I didn't. I ended up canceling it. And
Oh, well,
why they're calling me at fucking 8 p.m., to fucking ask about that, who the fuck knows?
somebody in HR needs to work on their work-life balance.
I mean, there are some departments that are open till 11, but that's not um one of those departments typically.
Why would they be?
Oh, well. Anyway, so yeah, we're going to be talking later tonight about the Monster Mash Battle Royal. Do you think that should be the main event or the opener?
I just do the main event, I guess.
Sounds good. But hey, since we're doing that at the end, let's talk about something fun at the beginning, namely my book, 40 Years
Yeah.
of Pay-Per-View, year one. I'm sorry, not year one, book one, 1985 to 1990. It's available not just on, Kindle as an ebook, but it's also available as an actual physical book. 418 pages if you include all the acknowledgments and shit at the end. And it is fantastic. It's an amazing read. I had a lot of fun writing it. You'll have a lot of fun reading it. And yeah, but it so go out and buy it, god damn it. Hell, get it on Kindle Unlimited and just flip through to the end if you hate it, just so I can make some money.
I bought it. I have not had time to open it yet.
It's all right. I'm assuming because looking at the orders, none of the physical books have been processed yet. I'm assuming you bought it on the Kindle.
Yes.
I'd call you a cheap son of a bitch, but I'm not exactly making a whole lot less money on the $5 Kindle version than I am on the $20 paperback version.
Yeah,
So
that's bananas. I don't know. I understand people's arguments that are pro hard copy books. I like having a fucking library with me everywhere I go.
me too. And it's weird to me. Like I wasn't going to do the actual hard copy, but like so many people said to me, "Hey, is there any way we can get this as a hard copy? Because I don't really like Kindle books." And I'm like, "Okay, whatever." And I'm like, I'm gonna have to charge like a lot of money so I can make anything off of it. And they're like, we don't care. It's like, okay, then here you go. I think
Well,
it's
there you go.
bizarre, but whatever.
You remember What year was it? Like 1995, 1996. At the beginning of the Royal Rumble pay-per-view, they show shots of all the wrestlers saying stuff in the camera, and Davey Boy Smith says he's going to win the Royal Rumble because he's bizarre.
Yeah, that was 97. Yeah.
Outstanding.
Why did the British Bulldog always have like the weird intro video stuff? Because there was SummerSlam 92 with that kid saying the British Bulldog is going to win, whether he wants to or not.
That's that's
It
really
was
that sounds
so.
like a threat.
The kid was like
It's
so
like,
angry about it too.
it's like that night the Klan showed up in Barbersville, Kentucky when they changed the Smoky Mountain title.
Tracy's going to win whether he wants to or not, and so is the British Bulldog.
Now, I will
This
say,
might be
we had a conversation about that way back when, and you thought it was a thing that they had to change, but according to Cornette, that was the original finish. Like they were
okay.
going to change the belt that night anyway.
Honestly, I always thought it was one of those things where like they were going to change the belt at some point, but that just sped up the decision.
Yeah,
And
no,
by the
that
way, I
was
think
the
this
what show was that?
hmm,
We
uh
watched it earlier this year. I watched it.
um the only one I could think of was Fire on the Mountain, and it was not Fire on the Mountain because that's coming up.
That's coming up.
I,
I should just
honestly,
remember this, and I don't. Bluegrass
honestly,
Brawl.
there we go. I was gonna say we both watch so much fucking wrestling that does it surprise you that we can't remember?
It all kind of runs together after a while. What did I watch today? I watched Smoky Mountain Wrestling from 1993. I watched WWE ECW from 2007, and I watched New Japan from 2024.
Interesting. How was New Japan?
It's good. We're about halfway through Super Junior Tag League. I am working on catching up because I had like stuff this weekend. So I just watched Sunday's show. I have to watch the show from Monday, and then there's a show tonight/tomorrow. So, but I will get caught up in the next day or two.
That's good. That's good. So by the way, after this episode of Smoky Mountain, I got to tell you an idea that I have for this
Okay.
very program in the future.
All right.
And but we can't get to the end of this episode without talking about the beginning of this episode. So here we go. Smoky Mountain Wrestling episode number 79, July 31st, 1993, at the Whitley County Middle School in Williamsburg, Virginia. I'm sorry, Williamsburg, Kentucky, drawing 356 people, if you believe the internet.
Hmm.
Um, and I actually got to bring up, I actually went to school with a kid whose last name was Whitley, and we were pretty good friends at the time. And I just thought about it when seeing the name of the school they're at this week.
I thought of Keith Whitley, who was a country music singer in like mostly the 80s, early 90s. If I remember correctly, he drank himself to death. One of the greatest vocalists of all time.
It wasn't part of the Clintons or the
Was
Armstrong
not a part of
Family
the.
Review.
He was not. I think he might have already been dead at this point.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Whitley. May you rest in peace. But let's go to
Yeah, Keith
Coddle and
Whitley. Keith Whitley died in 1989. So yeah.
goddamn. Well, let's go to Bob Coddle and Dutch Mantel, who are going to introduce this week's show.
Welcome to another exciting action-packed hour of Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Wrestling the way it used to be and the way you like it. Hi, wrestling fans. I'm Bob Caudle along with Dr. Dirty Dutch Mantel, and we got a great action-packed hour in store for all you fans this week. We're going to see the Heavenly Bodies. They're going to be in action right here during this hour. Also, Tim Horner, he's got some words to say about Chris Candido, and I mean he's got some hot ones there, Dutch. Also, Tracy Smothers is going to be in action, and we're going to look at an altercation, a collision between him and our heavyweight champion, Primetime Brian Lee. Bully Barb Armstrong, he's got an announcement I think is going to really shake the wrestling world. And what about Down and Dirty, Dutch?
It is with extreme pleasure that I announce my distinguished guest on Down and Dirty with Dutch today, the reigning Smoky Mountain Wrestling Beat the Champ title holder, the Dirty White Boy, will be with me for an In Focus interview today on Down and Dirty with
And it's a pleasure for you to have him, you said.
Absolutely. Anytime the White Boy wants to be on Down and Dirty, he's more than welcome.
All right, now what about our Beat the Champ draw?
Okay, as everybody knows, every week I pull a name out of the hat, and all the wrestlers, like I've said before, are waiting breathlessly to see if their name is pulled out of the hat to face the Dirty White Boy today. And today, this hat, Bob, is this your cap? It's really warm, but I'm going to pull a name out of this hat. The name today to face the Dirty White Boy is Steve Armstrong. Right here will face the Dirty White Boy today.
All right, fans, all of that and much more during this hour, and we're ready to go. Let's go to the ring.
Well, it's a big day for White Boy. He's gonna both defend the TV title and also be on Down and Dirty with Dutch for and I don't want to spoil too much ahead of us, but a really confusing announcement, I thought. But I guess we'll see when we get to that here. But also, Bullet Bob is going to have a announcement that shakes the wrestling world, and we're going to see an altercation with Primetime Brian Lee and Tracy Smothers. And I must tell you what, that was quite the altercation.
Indeed, it was very respectable pop for Steve Armstrong's name there.
Hey, this was a weird ass crowd. We'll see how they are in 2 weeks when they got the third show that they're taping. But they popped pretty big for Horner later on too, which just shows you they may not have any taste.
Maybe they haven't seen wrestling in a long time.
I mean, it's very possible. I mean, how often does pseudo Major League Wrestling come to Williamsburg, Kentucky?
What if Court Bauer ran Williamsburg, Kentucky? Then they would get actual Major League Wrestling.
Wow. All right. So our first match was the Heavenly Bodies with Jim Cornette versus Larry Santo and Chris Comet. This was another one of those shows that are so tightly edited that we have to remove the introduction of the opponents. In fact, in all of the job matches, the opponents don't get introductions.
Yeah, I did not like that.
Now, remember when one of Russo's negative traits was that he would book way too much for a 1 hour show, and they'd have to edit things all the way down to fit it into the show? Well, apparently Jim Cornette isn't the do as I say, not as I do camp.
Remember, I think like Booker T and Mike Awesome were supposed to have an ambulance match, and they were telling him to go home as Booker T was that gorilla.
I wish I could find that match because I don't remember ever seeing an ambulance match like that would end that fast. They'd be like, "Oh, this is that match."
Another thing, I was gonna mention it, but there's like a weird little jump cut going into the main event that I think they cut a few seconds out there at least because it just suddenly, without locking up, Dirty White Boy and Steve Armstrong were in an embrace.
It's possible there was just a pre-match hug it out.
That's possible.
I didn't write a whole lot about this match. I just wrote it was a fun little 3 or 4 minute match, and Del Rey pins Comet with the poon salt. Actually, did I even say who the opponents were? Larry Santo and Chris Comet. What if I didn't?
I wrote that the bodies are so great at squashing job guys because they're such like a classic Southern style tag team, but they also do a lot of cool modern moves, so it looks like they're just fucking destroying these guys.
I always whatchamacallit, I always have to stop and think who the Smoky Mountain Tag Team Champions are because I keep forgetting it's the Bruise Brothers. Because when Heavenly Bodies came out, I was in the middle of writing Tag Team Champions, Heavenly Bodies, but it's not them. It's Ron and Don Harris.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I don't know who decided to put the belts on the Harrises, but here we are.
Well, I think we know who decided it.
They shot on Ricky and Robert to win the belts.
Yeah.
So up next, Bullet Bob and Sandy Scott are out there to cut a promo. However, before we can watch the promo, we have to get some B-roll footage of Jim Cornette beating Bob in Knoxville just a few weeks ago. And so let's now go to Bob Caudle with Bob Armstrong and, to a lesser extent, Sandy Scott.
It's got to be one of the most embarrassing things to ever happen to you in your storied career of professional wrestling.
You know, Bob, it's not maybe the most, it is the most embarrassing match I've ever had in my life. I've wrestled some big, tough men I've been beaten by, and I've beat some of the world champions we have right here today. But that was the most embarrassing situation, because not only did that hurt me physically, that he did to me in Knoxville. Remember the Rage in the Cage in Knoxville when he crucified me and beat me half to death? Well, that didn't hurt half as bad as getting that arm laid over me and get the 3 count on me, because for over a quarter of a century, I've had a reputation. I've tried to build that reputation for me and my sons. And for this to happen to me in Knoxville, put a black spot on my heart and my soul, and it ain't going to go unanswered. Now, I've got something to say to the people today. I've got 2 things to ask Mr. Scott. First of all, we've agreed on this already, that in Johnson City, we're going to have a Rage in the Cage, because that's where all this started. That's where he beat my brains out. In Johnson City, we're going to have something a little bit different. This time I'll be a participant and not a referee. But our referee is somebody special that everybody knows, and that's the big boss man. He knows how to keep law and order. And when we all get in that cage, there'll be 10 men, arms and legs flying every which way. And one of these times, Jim Cornette, we're going to get nose to nose and toes to toes, and then you're going to pay for the game you played.
Now, that's Armstrong's army you're talking about.
Exactly. I'm going to have the entire army. It'll be the Armstrong's army against Cornette's criminals, and we're going to see that something happens that night in Johnson City. Fire on the mountain. And one more thing, that's a heck of a match there, and anything can happen, but I wanted a personal match with me and Jimmy Cornette, a one-on-one situation. And Mr. Scott has granted me this. In Knoxville, Tennessee, I will have Jim Cornette in a one-on-one situation. It's a lumberjack match. Now, everybody's seen a lumberjack match, but this one's going to be a little different. My army, Armstrong's army, is going to be around that ring, and they're going to have tennis rackets as well as the criminals. We're going to use the instrument of justice that he's used all these years to hurt people. All my lumberjacks are going to have tennis rackets in their hands. And as I've told you before, Mr. Scott, if I do not beat Jim Cornette in this one-on-one situation, if I do not put his shoulders on the mat for the 1, 2, 3, and I want to hear it loud and clear, and if I do not send him to the same hospital he sent me, with the same ambulance, I want the same number on the ambulance, I'll check it myself, then I'm going to refund everybody's money in that building. It's a money-back guarantee, Armstrong's word on that, and my word is my bond, and I have signed a bond with Mr. Scott standing right here that'll pay for every seat in that Knoxville Coliseum. And if I don't beat him, ladies and gentlemen, not only will I give you your money back, I don't care if it's a sellout, if there's 10 people here, everybody that comes to Knoxville will get their money back, and that'll be the last match you ever see Bullet Bob Armstrong wrestling. If I don't beat that man, if I can't beat him, I don't deserve to be a professional wrestler, and that will be my last match. I will quit that night. Now, Mr. Scott, please tell the man and assure him that you've got the money.
That's unheard of, Mr.
Yes,
Scott.
it is, but I have the bond right here in my bag, and Bob, you have to beat Jim Cornette. If you do not, all the wrestling fans will get their money back.
That's exactly how I want it, Sandy. Not only will get the money back, they'll get to see the last match of Bullet Bob Armstrong after a quarter of a century. So, brother, I ain't letting nobody down, especially me and my army. Cornette, brother, I'm going to chew you up and spit you out in cellulite nails.
And he's going to send him to the hospital, fans. That's guaranteed by this money. Don't forget it. It's the Rage in the Cage and the K-Town Showdown. We'll be back right after this.
So we have a lot to unpack with that segment. First of all, if I'm Jim Cornette, I know Jim Cornette booked it, but if I'm Jim Cornette, I will find something else to do on the night of August 20th. Because just watching Bullet Bob wring his hands together, I'm like, okay, this motherfucker is gonna kick somebody's ass that night.
Believe it. Money promo.
So, first of all, the WWF Smoky Mountain Connection is already in full force, while he is pretty much on his way out, because I don't think he wrestles again at the WWF until '98 when he comes back. But Big Boss Man is going to be in Smoky Mountain for about a week. First, he's going to be the referee at the Fire on the Mountain Rage in the Cage match with Armstrong's Army versus Cornette's Criminals. And then we find out later that he's going to be wrestling Kevin Sullivan on both this show and the K-Town Showdown show. And then he's also the referee for the singles match with Jim Cornette, where, if Cornette wins, then not only is everybody in the crowd going to get their money refunded to them, but Bullet Bob will retire forever if he loses to Jim Cornette on that night.
Yeah, and that's a classic trick for, drawing a house and giving the people the Iggy that they're going to get their payoff. Because I don't want to spoil it, but they're not going to give the people their money back.
I can't believe Smoky Mountain would not give the people their money back. Why the hell not? Oh, okay. I now figured out why they won't get their money back. I mean, plus, for $15, you can have Hooters with the wrestlers. Because, when I want to go to Hooters, I want to go with Primetime Brian Lee and the Big Boss Man.
I bet Dr. Tom and Gigolo Jimmy would be a fun time at Hooters.
I bet well, I guess Stan's out of the territory anymore, but I bet Ricky and Robert were keeping the waitresses busy that night.
Oh, you know it. What do you think the Hooters girls would look like in Williamsburg, Kentucky?
Let's just say that everybody is attractive to somebody.
That's true,
Well,
even me.
yeah, we'll leave it at that. But yeah, so Cornette's about to get murdered by Bullet Bob Armstrong on August 20th. Um, and yeah, that should be a fun happening.
It is
But
indeed going to be happening.
well, I feel like Gorilla Monsoon now. Everything's a happening.
Indeed,
But
that's the
you know what
that's the
else is
point.
happening?
Tim Horner versus Joe Kazana.
Thunder rolls and the lightning strikes. The fans were weirdly into Horner, and he had a garbage bag with him. Do you remember? Hey, we were talking about 2007, 2008 WWE earlier. Do you remember when Kane was walking around with a burlap sack and Mike Adamle, who was the GM at the time, went and told Kane that he has to tell people what's in the bag because we can't have kids going to school carrying creepy bags with them. And so Kane had to reveal what was in the bag.
I remember parts of that. I don't remember the Mike Adamle thing.
I'll be honest, like I don't know. I'm sure like asking how it holds up is, a real ridiculous comment on my part. But I loved Mike Adamle as GM. I just thought it was like I don't know, just like it was so wacky and off and different that it just worked.
It was better than Mike Adamle as an announcer.
When he didn't know what the announce thing was called that they're sitting at.
The
And
table.
yes. And then like the whole the Brian Kendrick thing, like that was an inside rib on Adamle, who kept calling Taz the Taz.
Yeah, I remember that.
I also remember he was the only person to ever call CM Punk CM.
Elijah Burke did that in a backstage segment one time.
Okay. Well, I don't remember that, but I just remember Adamle saying it a lot. Maybe not all
It
the
was on
time because of what.
ECW. It was on ECW when they were doing the thing with the new breed. You remember the new
Mhm.
breed, their feud with the ECW originals?
So not Chris Champion and the other guy traveling through time
No,
to when Dusty Rhodes was the president.
no. It was with like Elijah Burke,
Yeah.
Kevin Thorne, Matt
The
Stryker.
and the alpha male Marcus Corvon.
Oh, yeah. What a fucking travesty, man. How TNA fucked him up, and then the Fed just did like Well, we'll fucking show you. We'll fuck it up even worse.
I don't think they really fucked it up because didn't he have like wasn't there an issue with like his wife or something passed away and he had to raise his daughter or something?
Okay, yeah, I do recall that now. Speaking of great entrance music, Marcus
Tim Horner?
Corvan's
Oh.
Marcus Corvan's entrance music in WWE was fantastic.
Yes, it was. What the hell was up Jim Johnston around that period? We got all these great
I
theme
don't
songs
know,
back to
man.
back to back.
He was on. He was on something.
Indeed, and it's funny because everyone only remembers like the good or awfully good, theme songs he did. He did a lot of generic crap too. So it's like, you
Oh yeah.
know, but like you just remember the handful of good ones he did and just sprinkle some salt over the rest.
So I have heard the name Joe Kazana. I don't believe I've ever seen him wrestle before. He was
Really?
not very good, and he was not very good, and this match was boring.
I thought he'd been on this show before.
Not since I've been doing it.
Oh, I mean, I thought he was on the show since you were because he was definitely on the show. He's been on the show since the beginning of the show. Um, there's a lot you need to go see, but Joe Kazan isn't one of them. Uh, Sadly, the WWA World Heavyweight Champion Chris Candido comes to the broadcast table to talk about Horner. He says that he's mad because Horner calls him a crybaby, and that in Horner's 47-year career, Horner's never been world champion. And I'll be honest, that legit made me laugh out loud. That Horner's had a 47-year career, especially since Caudle has to
Fe-
be like the straight guy here. Heck, he's not even 47 years old.
Feels like 47 years every time I have to listen to Warner talk.
Well, get ready for another 47 years in a minute or two. But anyway, so we're gonna find out later on that Horner has an unusual way of solving the issue from last week, where Candido emptied a baby bottle on him. Candido asked Dutch what it was, and Dutch said it was probably something illegal, which I love Dutch. Horner
It's
wins with the world's slowest natural bridge, and unfortunately, you know, Candido is the world champion. You need to make sure that everything is presentable at all times, and so he needed to go polish the title belt. So unfortunately, he couldn't have a confrontation with Tim Horner right now.
I did appreciate that.
Yeah. But unfortunately, because Chris Candido isn't here, Tim Horner is, and Horner's got something to say.
With me right now, White Lightning Tim Horner. Tim, we just saw what occurred last week, and I also mentioned earlier, and I mentioned it to Chris Candido, that you had some special payback in store.
Well, that's right. If you saw it, I don't have to explain it. Yep. But let me tell you something, Candido. You made the mistake of your career last week. Let me tell you something. I went to the board of directors of Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and I have asked for some special matches. Let me explain one of them to you.
What's in the bag, Tim? What you got in the bag?
You never know what's in the bag, Bob Connell.
Looks like a grab bag here, man.
What we have here
Oh, my heavens.
is a baby bottle. One of the matches is going to be a baby bottle for the crybaby Candido. That means the loser is going to have to take a little swig of milk. And if, just to make sure it's you, Candido, I'm going to make sure it's real sour and ready for you. The other match, and I know you'll feel at home with this because that's what you wear all the time, is these. Wears them all the time, constantly at home. Don't want nobody to know, but everybody knows babies wear these things. One thing's for sure, Candido, I'm not going to wear either one of them, because if I do, I'd certainly leave Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and I ain't planning on going nowhere, pal.
All right, then. That's going to be something.
Do you think Cornette thought about pulling a double cross when Candido had Horner in like an arm bar or something and come down to yell at the timekeeper to ring the fucking bell?
I'm certain the temptation was there.
Someone should ask him that. I don't know if he still has questions on his show, but if he does, Someone go ask him that.
Sure he
Um,
does.
I did laugh that the fans laughed when he's like, "You never know what's in the bag," and he's like, "Let me tell you something. Let me explain it to you." And they're gonna have a baby bottle match, and because Horner didn't remember the word diaper, they're gonna have a diaper match as well.
That was why was he struggling with the word diaper? Was it just a brain fart? Was it a weird? I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe he was hanging around Chris Adams, and Chris Adams calls him nappies because he's British, and that's the British word for it. I don't know. And I don't know where Chris Adams came from. I'm just trying to think of someone British for Tim Horner to be hanging out with.
Can't imagine Chris Adams would hang out with Tim Horner.
I don't know. I think Chris Adams has done worse things, like that angle where Gino Hernandez died, but equally as bad was Gino Hernandez also blinded Chris Adams.
Oh, I didn't.
Uh,
I don't think I knew about that.
yeah, the last thing he did was an angle where he blinds Chris Adams, and then like on TV afterwards, they're like, we have two tragedies here in World Class. The first, Gino Hernandez died. Secondly, Chris Adams is blind.
That is the most Fritz von Erich thing ever.
Maybe Mark Lawrence came up with it when he was on a binge one day.
I hope he's getting his life in order.
I hope he's still alive. Um, but by the way, so I mentioned the Knoxville show. They have a golden circle ticket for an extra $7. You get to have Hooters with the wrestlers. At Fire on the Mountain in Johnson City, for the extra $7 for the golden circle ticket, you get, and I quote, free pizza. I gotta say, it doesn't sound free when you've got to spend $7 extra to get it.
Yeah, not sure how that works.
Especially since it's Papa John's pizza. Like, really?
Uh,
Uh,
there was a time that Papa John's was my go-to cheap pizza, and then Papa John was outed as a white supremacist. So that's when I started fucking with Domino's again.
that was around the time that the only Papa John's in the town I live in closed up shop magically one night, and I don't even know where the closest one is to me.
I don't either. I know there's I can go down to like the main road nearest my house, and I can take either a right or a left, and either way, there's a Domino's in about a mile and a half.
I mean, there's a lot of good local pizza places, but sometimes you just need some messy crap, and Domino's, they give me some messy crap, and I'm happy for it.
I mean, they have good coupons too, so that's like part of it. And also the jalapeno bacon stuffed cheesy bread is fucking godly.
I don't think I've ever had that.
Oh,
I
you gotta
I
try it.
I tend to get my pan pizza with extra cheese, extra sauce, and mushrooms, and the barbecue bacon chicken.
No, I like that New York style crust that they got fairly recently.
And by the way, Domino's is not paying us for this plug. Maybe they should.
Maybe if I get after you with the pizza cutter, they'll accidentally sponsor us right then.
Oh Lord, yeah, I don't know if remember the LOL TNA page that had like all the LOL TNA moments over the years. There
Yes.
there has to be an LOL AEW page.
I I'm sure there is. I'm not sure if there are any good ones that are from a place of love and enjoyment. I think a lot of the LOL AEW type things are trolls.
I I would say that original match, the Casino Battle Royal with
Ah,
MJF, Hangman Adam Page, and the jokiest jokes that ever joked in what's
The
essentially a number one contenders match for the world title, that might qualify.
There was a guy with no legs in that match.
Yes,
I think he's still in
yes,
it because his feet never touched the floor.
he did not. I think he should take that up with Hangman. He who knows? He could have beaten Chris Jericho.
I I don't
And,
know.
and
Maybe
actually,
Hangman would have burned his house down too.
you know that guy with the yellow face paint, Sunny Days.
Yes.
He is well, he was because get into the story, but he was a local Pennsylvania independent wrestler named Dylan that we had on on our old show way back when, before he ever got involved with Paige, and he actually went on to live and work for DDP and was a big part of the Jake Roberts documentary that they did.
Oh, I didn't know that. Good for him.
Yeah, and
Had never heard
I
of
don't know.
him. Had
Yeah.
never heard of him before that match or since.
I don't know if he's still there because like I fell out of touch with him pretty much around the time he, did that one match with AEW because he was going to work in AEW production as well, but I don't know if that ever came to be of anything.
I don't know.
But anywho, let's talk about Down and Dirty with Dutch with the Dirty White Boy. And when we come back, I'm going to ask you what you think the challenge is to Bobby Blaze that got accepted. And who knows, maybe you have it right all along, and I was just an idiot who was confused. All
I
right, let's
understood
go
it
to that.
perfectly.
All right, so I was an idiot who didn't get it. But let's go to that
Okay.
right now.
Everybody, welcome to Down and Dirty with Dutch. I'm Dutch Mantell, and you're not. And it is with extreme pleasure, like I said at the outset of the show, to welcome one of the greatest wrestlers to ever grace the inside of a wrestling ring, my good friend, the Dirty White Boy. And I'd like to add the current reigning Smoky Mountain Wrestling Beat the Champion title holder. Now, White Boy, like I said, it's a pleasure for you to be out here on Down and Dirty and educate some of these fans, but you've run into a little bit of a situation with Bobby Blaze lately, and let me just ask you something. You made a lot of statements about him, but did you maybe underestimate this young man just a little bit?
I can't believe you even asked me that, Dutch.
Well, I'm a journalist. I'm paid to ask questions like that.
I didn't make any kind of mistake. I didn't underestimate anybody. The boy's a thorn in my side. He's a spur underneath my saddle, and I'm getting sick and tired of him being around me. I've whooped him all over the Smoky Mountain area. And what do you got to do to get rid of somebody? I don't know. Decapitate him or what? You know, Dutch, it ain't nothing for me to whoop somebody. You know that.
I've seen you whoop a lot of men.
Yes, you have. But, Bobby Blaze, if you're listening, this is your lucky day, son. I've got a little surprise for you. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. It's real simple. I'm going to give you $100 a minute, up to 10 minutes, if he stays in the ring with me. $100 a minute, up to 10 minutes. If he lasts 10 minutes, he's going to leave $1,000 richer. He don't even have to pin me. He wins. But if I beat you, Bobby Blaze, before the 10-minute time limit is up, you're going to get right here in the middle of the ring, if you got enough guts to accept this, and then sit down in a chair, and then I'm going to shave that big, ugly cranium that he calls a head.
Wait a minute, let me get this right now. If he stays, for every minute he stays, $100 a minute.
Cash.
And if he stays 10 minutes, that's $1,000.
Cash.
That is the prize for the Beat the Champ contest here on Smoky Mountain Wrestling. But if you beat him, he's got to sit his fat, ugly mug down, right? That's it. And you're going to shave that head?
Bald.
All the way bald.
All the way bald, not a bit of hair on that big, ugly head left.
That is an interesting... Wait a minute. Wait just a minute. We're joined, ladies and gentlemen, on the Down and Dirty segment here by Bobby Blaze. Now, Mr. Blaze, did you hear the challenge that the Dirty White Boy just issued in your direction?
I heard what you said, White Boy. Let me see if I've got this deal right. You're going to give me $100 for every minute up to 10 minutes that I can stay in the ring with you.
He's a highly intelligent young man.
Yes, he is. Did you hear the rest of it, though? The rest of it's going to affect you very dearly if you lose.
And if I lose this match, you're going to shave my head right in the middle of the ring.
God, you're smart.
I'll tell you what. I haven't made a lot of money in this business, but I'm going to real soon. And that's too good a deal for me to pass up. I accept it. I accept the deal.
Okay, you accept it. You accept it right here on Smoky Mountain Television. You accept the challenge. Okay, white boy, you've issued it. He's accepted it. Okay, no contact here, guys. But you've heard it here on Down and Dirty with Dutch. Bobby Blaze accepts the Dirty White Boys challenge. Don't go away. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
All right, so maybe this is where my confusion came in.
Okay.
Like, I get the gist of it. You know, if Bobby Blaze is going to get $100 for every minute he lasts with White Boy, and up to 10 minutes, so he could get $1,000. But then the confusion for me comes in when, like, I guess what's the time limit of the match? Is the match longer than 10 minutes? And
No.
if so,
If he lasts 10 minutes, he wins. That was stated.
so it's just a 10-minute time limit match. It's not a match that has like a 30-minute time limit, but only the stipulations are up in the first 10 minutes, because that's where it got weird, because White Boy at one point says, if I beat you in the first 10 minutes, and then Dutch and Bobby Blaze just change it to, if you beat me at all, you can shave my head. And that's where I was like, okay, so it's like, so I thought it was just a stipulation for the first 10 minutes. So it'll be like, how the match is going to end. It's going to end in 11 minutes, or some shit like that. But I guess that's where it is. It's like, is the match only a 10-minute time limit? Or like, if it goes more than 10 minutes and White Boy wins, does Bobby Blaze get his head shaved? That's where it's like,
okay.
I don't fucking know.
Okay. The match has a 10-minute time limit. Bobby Blaze gets $100 for every minute that he lasts, and if he lasts 10 minutes, he wins. But if the Dirty White Boy beats Bobby Blaze within that 10 minutes, he gets to shave his head. Now, here's what I'm wondering. If Bobby Blaze lasts 9 minutes and then gets beat, does he get the $900 and his head shaved?
I believe so, yes.
I would assume so, but that wasn't clarified.
See, I would also turn it the other way. Let's say the match goes 30 seconds and Bobby Blaze wins. Does he get no money?
That would be the plot of the original Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie.
I gotta say, I haven't watched that movie in a while, but I don't recall that being the plot of the movie.
Okay, well, that wasn't the plot of the movie. That was the plot of a scene. You remember he goes to like wrestle, and it's Macho Man Randy Savage playing Bonesaw McGraw, and then so the deal is he gets X number of dollars if he lasts 3 minutes, and then he beats him, and he goes to collect his money, and the promoter shorts him. Which, imagine that, a scumbag wrestling promoter fucking somebody around. And he said it was if you last 3 minutes, but you pinned him in 2.
But I don't know. I think like, if it is, as you said, a 10-minute time limit, that they're making it too complicated. And like, if me, somebody from the North and, incredibly educated, if it's too complicated for me to get down, it's probably too complicated for the people here in Kentucky and Alabama and Tennessee. And actually, they don't go into Alabama, but you know what I mean? It's like, you're supposed to keep it simple, stupid, but it's like, I don't know. I think it's a little too much. Like,
we need to know if Chris Jericho's trained Kentucky people understood the stipulation.
I don't think they understand what world they live in.
I mean, I don't either.
Now, if you were Bobby Blaze, would you have accepted that match?
Probably. Hair grows back.
True, but I mean, White Boy has beaten his ass every time they've wrestled, and quite thoroughly. Like, would you want to wrestle? Would you want to get your ass kicked by Dirty White Boy for maybe $1,000?
Okay, hold on. Let me bring up the inflation calculator real quick. Inflation calculator, yeah, Bureau of Labor Statistics.
It's probably like
month are
$2,200,
we in?
$2,300. October.
July 1993. $1,000. Hold on. I think there we go. My num lock wasn't on. In September 2024, $2,183.52. I'd let Tony Anthony kick my ass for 10 minutes for $2,000.
That's if he makes it last 10 minutes.
You know, that's true. I didn't think of that. Maybe Bobby Blaze believes in himself.
Well, what I believe in is Redmond Auto Sales. And we're going to go to an incident that occurred while Tracy Smothers was filming a commercial for a car lot that he could not remember the name of the street that they were on. Let's go to that right now.
Just recently, Tracy Smothers was in Knoxville filming a commercial for Redmond Auto Sales. What happened during the filming was definitely not helpful in selling cars. Let's go back and take a look.
Tracy Smothers, the wild-eyed Southern boy, here to tell you to get a cool deal and beat the heat at Redmond Auto Sales on Highway.
Alcoa. All right, let's start over.
Do it again.
All right, we're ready to go again.
Okay.
Jesus.
I get it
All
this
right,
time.
all
I
right.
get it.
Hi, I'm Tom Sturdivant of Redmond Auto Sales on 4344 Alcoa Highway.
And this is Tracy Smothers, the wild-eyed Southern boy, here to tell you to beat the heat and get a cool deal at Redmond Auto Sales on that highway. That gum highway.
Jesus.
My life.
Okay.
I'm sorry, guys.
All right, we're ready. Let's take 3.
That highway's got me kicked.
Hi, I'm Tom Sturdivant from Redmond Auto Sales at 4344 Airport Highway.
And this is Tracy Smothers, the wild-eyed Southern boy, here to tell you to beat the heat. And what in the world is going on?
Hey, come on, fellas. I don't need... Boys. I don't need this on my...
job you would have after I ran you out of Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
Somebody call 911.
It's a commercial. A used car salesman.
Yeah, Tracy, when it comes to cars, you're a Toyota and Primetime's here at Rolls-Royce.
Oh, yeah, okay, Miss Witch. I guess you know enough about cars. You've been in the back seat of enough of them.
Ho! Somebody call 911! Come on, fellas!
Oh, Lord. So, Tracy tries to cut a commercial for Redmond Auto Sales on Alcoa Highway in Knoxville. To make it interesting, did you notice the guy in the third time he said the wrong street name himself?
No, I did not. I did not.
Yes. The third time he says Airport Highway. I'm like, that's not the name of the street. But by sheer dumb luck, Primetime Brian Lee and Tammy Fitch just happen to be driving by at that moment. They pull in and Tracy basically calls her a slut, so Tammy rightfully slapped him in the face. And the fight was on. And the fight included Primetime Brian Lee slipping and falling on his ass while trying to get a crowbar that he accidentally destroyed one of the used car windows with. And I got to tell you, even before that car got smashed up, it didn't look like the nicest car on the lot.
I mean, it might have been here in whatever city in Tennessee, Kentucky this was.
I thought they said Knoxville.
Well, there's probably a nicer car than that in Knoxville.
Probably. So then we get a live promo with Primetime Brian Lee and Tammy Fitch. Tammy has a death grip on the title belt and said that Tracy's just jealous. They're building up a coal miner's glove match between the two, and Lee mocked the idea of them having this match and said that he's so tall he doesn't even have to climb the pole.
You think Tammy knows about climbing poles?
Oh, only if her idol Hillary Clinton knew how to.
You know that what do you think Hillary Clinton's like in bed? Did I just say that? Did I just say that on the podcast?
Oh Lord. Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Well, she not good enough to keep her husband happy anyway.
Well, I mean, she was busy running the country, so I mean, what do you expect?
This is the one that's going to get me canceled in 2 years.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. Well, if that doesn't get you canceled, we have a match.
Oh wait, just one second. I love the guy at the car lot. I bet they told him they gave him a line for when the shit started, but then he jumped the gun, and as soon as Brian Lee showed up, he yelled, "Call 911" before anything had ever happened. And then they started brawling, and he yelled it again.
And then the worst part was he's yelling it into the microphone while the guys are trying to cut promos on each other. Like, dude, shut up. Learn your spots.
Okay, I know you. I know we got to talk about this match now.
So up next we have a match, and the match itself, there's nothing wrong with the match. Well, Tracy Smothers is in it. Tracy Smothers wins with the jaw jacker. Um, However, it is impossible to take this match seriously. And the reason why it's impossible to take this match seriously is Tracy Smothers' opponent is a man by the name of Juicy Johnny. Juicy
Who, by the
Johnny.
way, not only was his name Juicy Johnny, he looked like his gear looked like the Rockers gear from like the late 80s fucked Lisa Frank folder.
I thought it was Jimmy Janetti at first because it was another one of those times where they just didn't introduce the opponent. Um, but do you want to explain what
No,
we've discovered?
no, I don't. I
Would you
don't
like
at all.
would you like me to explain what we've discovered?
I would like to hang up for a minute and have you explain it and then come back if that's possible.
So, um, according to Urban Dictionary, a juicy Johnny. Oh, we're gonna get canceled. A juicy Johnny is when a girl takes a shit on a guy while he pisses into her mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, Anthony really gave Stephanie a juicy Johnny.
It's so
Wrong.
I'm verklempt.
So I don't know if this is the same juicy Johnny. I mean, I'm assuming it is, even though they don't have his Smoky Mountain run on here. But Cage Match does have several matches by a gentleman called Juicy Johnny, with his last match being in 2012, where he teamed with Sexy KC to defeat Coyote and Jack Steele.
Yeah, I looked at that and like doesn't that like not have any matches until like I don't know 2007 or something? I don't know if that's the same guy.
I thought it was like 97. Yeah,
Hold on.
that,
Okay, yeah, you're
that,
right.
that,
97.
well, I mean, that was prior
Badger
to,
State
so
Pro Wrestling. I don't
You're
think
not
this is the
into
same Juicy Johnny.
that would imply that there is more than one Juicy Johnny.
Well, for the kind of people that like that sort of thing, that's the kind of thing those people like.
Now, for what it's worth, when I look up this particular episode of Smoky Mountain on Cage Match, this particular Juicy Johnny does not have a cage match profile. So it may
Yeah.
not be the same guy, but again, that tells you that there was more than one person named Juicy Johnny.
Yeah. That's I'm just, I watched the show earlier today and I saw this match and I'm like, okay, Juicy Johnny, he's got a silly name, whatever. And I didn't think anything of it till about, I don't know, 5 hours later when I get a message on Facebook Messenger from my good friend Arya, and I go, oh, what has Arya sent me? And it's an Urban Dictionary link. And then that's going to affect the rest of my life because I can't unknow that now.
You and Mrs. Trae were trying to figure out the logistics of the Juicy Johnny.
I immediately was like, I just setting aside the disgust, I can't fathom the logistics. And then, so if our listener is married, they know that one of the key reasons that you get married is so when you come across something that has to live in your brain and you have to live with and you don't want to live with alone, you have someone you can share with who's like legally required to listen to you. So I called my wife into the room. She wasn't even in the room. Okay, that's not true. She came into the room right after. I did not call her into the room to share this with her, but she just happened to come in, and I explained the whole story with the context. There was a job guy at Smoky Mountain Wrestling, blah blah blah, and bless her, my wonderful bride, immediately went straight to trying to figure out the logistics.
That's fucking tremendous.
Yeah.
And I believe, we did come up with the probability of how that would work. The man would be laying on the ground and pissing straight up in the air while she crouched over him, probably in a 90-degree angle, and took a shit.
The real tragedy of this is this is the one show that doesn't have titles because the titles should be Juicy Johnny.
I think I'll have to add one just to for to make it easier for us to get canceled.
Yeah, that'll help. That'll help.
Yes.
We don't want to make it too hard for the people who are going to scour our old podcast to look for reasons to cancel us.
And imagine if they have to get this far to find something to cancel us over, we may have done something wrong by this point in our lives.
I've done a lot wrong in my life.
So after Tracy defeated the sexual position, he had a promo to cut about Primetime Brian Lee, and shockingly not about Juicy Johnny. Let's go to Bob Caudle with the former champion right now.
Right now, here's the wild-eyed Southern boy himself, Tracy Smothers. Tracy, earlier the fans heard Primetime Brian Lee and talking about what they're going to do with that coal miner's glove match.
You know something, Bob? I don't think it's any secret to these people out here, the people in Williamsburg, Kentucky, and all over the Smoky Mountain area. It ain't hard to tell who wears the pants in that relationship, man. I'm going to tell you that right now. Brian Lee, you're falling around up that little tramp like a puppy dog. You almost beheaded me when I was trying to do that commercial, man, but you didn't get the job done. Everybody knows you took that black glove and you knocked me out, and that's why you're the Smoky Mountain Heavyweight Champion. Along with that little brat, Tammy Witch. My mom said pretty is as pretty does. and I've seen better bodies in a used car lot. Now the glove's up on the pole. You call us all hillbillies and coal miners. Well, I'm gonna tell you this. I'm gonna scale that thing like a monkey, man, and I'm gonna get that glove, and I'm gonna knock you into the next area code and be the next Smoky Mountain heavyweight champion. Thank you.
Gonna be some match, fans. You don't want to miss that. All right, we'll be back.
All right. So he says that he's seen better bodies than Tammy's at a used car lot. And I mean, I guess he should know since he was just there trying to cut a commercial for that car lot.
Yeah, so a second reference to beheading on this show, and I meant to mention it during the Down and Dirty with Dutch segment when Dirty White Boy was ranting about Bobby Blaze, and he said, I don't know what I have to do. Do I have to decapitate him? And I thought, well, that's a little excessive, I think. But then we have our second reference to decapitation on the same show.
Maybe we're gonna get like a tournament of decapitation, and these are the final four.
There's a really great movie about that also has a wrestling tie-in.
Tournaments of decapitation.
Highlander.
Fun, 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 fun.
Do you not know about Highlander?
I know about Highlander.
Okay. I was about to be offended.
There can be only one Highlander Club. So by the way, during the next commercial break is when they note. Oh, this is when I wrote that Bobby Blaze's hair is only on the line for the first 10 minutes of the match. So I don't fucking know. I'll take your word for it that the match is only a 10-minute time limit. And honestly, I would doubt the match would go any longer anyway. But oh well.
I mean,
then
he
we get our.
Dirty White Boy explicitly said that he didn't have to beat him. If he lasted 10 minutes, he would win.
But I took that as meaning like you don't have to beat him because we're gonna have a match, and if it goes longer than 10 minutes, you're gonna get the $1,000 even if I beat you.
I think you're overanalyzing something that was rather clearly stated.
Maybe I am. Maybe I am. Well, I'll tell you something I'm not going to overanalyze. It's Beat the Champ TV title Canna Fresco holder, Dirty White Boy, without Mr. Ron Wright versus Steve Armstrong, of all people. Coddle's mic, by the way, his headset mic stopped working during the Tracy Smothers match and continued to not work here, at least until about halfway through the match. Cornette and the Heavenly Bodies come in, and Coddle's mic eventually starts working again because he brings up the big boss man, and Cornette promises that he will talk to the boss man, and we'll see who is really law and order in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. They tell us, and I don't know how true this is. I'm gonna have to try to go ahead in time and kind of scan through some future episodes. But they say that due to the matches that are going to be so violent that they cannot air on television, that no highlights from either Fire on the Mountain or the K-Town Showdown will air on television.
Oh, really? I didn't even catch that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that mean I'm gonna actually be able to nag you into watching Fire on the Mountain?
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. So as Steve was mounting a comeback, the Heavenly Bodies hit the ring for the disqualification. White Boy, hey, anything, as long as you don't get pinned or submitted, anything is considered a win when you're the Smoky Mountain Beat the Champ TV champion. So he didn't give a shit. He just took his belt, or he took his belt. He took his check and head for the high ground.
Yeah, so I did slightly chuckle at Cornette ranting about the crooked, stinking politicians that run Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and I had just been starting to feel optimistic about this. Like this was well on its way to being the best match on this show in a couple of months, and then they did a DQ in under 4 minutes.
Yep. I don't know. It's like they like this TV title. It's like I don't know. It's like it's such a kind of a BS thing because it's like we get we either get jobber matches most of the time or we get, actual name wrestlers wrestling each other in screwy finishes. And that happens a lot on this show.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah. So Heavenly Bodies hold Steve Armstrong, so Cornette could hit him with the racket a few times, and finally Bullet Bob runs down with his baseball bat for the save, and Scott was also there, but Bullet Bob obviously the star of this.
Absolutely, no contest.
So then, before we get a Rock and Roll Express promo, we saw the finish of a recent match in Knoxville with the Rock and Roll Express and the Bruise Brothers. The Rock and Roll Express were making their comeback and used a double drop kick on Bruise Brother number 1. Morton goes for the Hurricane on Bruise Brother number 2, but number 1 hits him with his boot for the pin. And so then that leads us to our show closing promo with Ricky Morton, and he's got a challenge for next week.
You're big, you're strong, any match area, and boy, you got to almost fight for your life.
That's right, Bob. You know, the Bruise Brothers are one of the toughest teams that Robert and I have faced in our profession since we've been in wrestling. But you see how they beat the Rock and Roll Express. You see one thing, Bruise Brothers, we're going to take a page out of your own book. You see, we're going to be right here next week. And Jimmy Cornette, this goes for you too. If your team are the champions they say they are, they will put the titles up right here on TV against the Rock and Roll Express, just like we did. But you got to understand one thing, Jimmy. These guys we know are big and bad. But one thing we figured out, Bob, they can always be had. All right.
All right, fans, that's it.
All right, so nothing. It was a cute little promo to make a challenge for next week. I imagine the Bruise Brothers will accept because even though they're the heels, you're not going to bother having the baby faces challenge for the belts and not end up having the match. And so that's how the show goes off the air. This is definitely one of those shows where they crammed way too much into 1 hour.
Yeah, and it really showed in the editing, and I don't know. It was frustrating because that's usually not that much of a problem on this show, or hasn't been that I've seen.
Like occasionally we've joked about, that they didn't introduce the opponents of this match, but it's usually just the one match. But this time it was every match, and there were noticeable jump cuts around the show, and I don't know. It's like I guess if it works, like who cares if they didn't introduce the jobbers? But I care. Even though they use the same 5 or 6 jobbers, with the exception of Juicy Johnny, it's something that, it's nice to have them introduced, is all I'm just going to say.
It's one of my pet peeves when they don't identify the enhancement wrestlers, because I feel like if they're good enough to be on your show, they're good enough to identify.
So there was an episode of NXT back in 2017, and it was right after the Authors of Pain debuted, but they hadn't given them names yet. So there was a TV job match where the Authors of Pain took on 2 enhancement talent, and neither the Authors of Pain nor the enhancement talent were given names.
It's funny, I was going through some old stuff, and I had like some results from 2016, and I felt like, just what the fuck are these names? And then I remembered, oh yeah, those were like the Authors of Pain's real names, because they didn't have their gimmick names yet. And it's
What is it?
I don't even know how to
Sonny
pronounce this. Sonny Dinza and Gazim Selmani.
That's as good as I'm gonna get. So
My brain turns it into Jism Salami, and I apologize to Akam or Razor, whichever one that is.
yes, after the show we're having, that was a little too far past the line. Oh, uh, so 79 down, 121 to go. We're almost halfway done. Um, but before we finish things up, actually, before we move on to the main event, we gotta talk about what else is happening in the world of wrestling. Because I can tell you July 31st, 1993, until I'm blue in the face. But this will give you some context to give you an idea of what else is going on in the world of wrestling. Now, you might recall in the last few weeks we've discussed that WCW has been in negotiations with both Jerry Jarrett and Terry Funk to become the new booker of WCW. Well, this week they decided to just stick with the current booking committee and not to go with either Jarrett or Funk.
Tremendous.
Oh well.
Because it's going so well.
Yeah, indeed. And also, WCW did a surprise drug test this week. It was such a huge surprise that every wrestler knew about it at least a week ahead of time.
That's yeah, quite the surprise.
Yeah. But then and keep in mind this is kind of a slow news week. But the other big news story this week was the debut of the World Wrestling Network, which no is not a TV channel, but it's a promotion that ran a show in Dallas that is allegedly funded by Jim Crockett Jr. and booked by Paul Heyman. They had a show in Killeen, Texas, drawing 2,100 people. Now, where is Killeen, Texas?
It's a suburb of Dallas.
Okay. Now, the main event of this show, and who knows what it was supposed to be, because I'll tell you, the talent that no-showed this show is just tremendous. But the main event of this show was Road Warrior Hawk versus Nails, the ex-con.
That sounds horrible. I have to
Go
correct
ahead.
myself real quick. Killeen is not a suburb of Dallas. It is actually a lot further south. It's actually closer to Austin than it is to Dallas. I think that's where Fort Hood is. I think.
Interesting. If
Not that
you
it
were a
matters.
wrestling fan in 1993 and had the means to go to this, would you have tried to go to see the World Wrestling Network with Road Warrior Hawk versus Nails?
I wouldn't go anywhere that Nails was going to be at today.
I think I've accidentally been at a wrestling convention or two that he's been at, but that's about it. But
Just
the
lucky you
no-shows
survived.
on this show, we have a Hall of Fame list of no-shows here. Greg the Hammer Valentine, Medusa Michelli, Road Warrior Animal, the Berserker, Conan, and Eddie Guerrero all no-showed this event.
Wow.
And thanks to all the no-shows, the future Rocco Rock got to wrestle twice. Once as the masked tag team of the Komodo Dragons. And I want you to think of like the junior heavyweights that, became WCW cruiserweights of that mid 90s era. If you had to think of someone who would be part of a high flying tag team, a masked high flying tag team called the Komodo Dragons, who would you think would team up with Rocco Rock?
Um,
Well, I'm not going to
Art
leave you
Bar.
twisting in the wind here too long. Dean Malenko.
Known for his high flying antics, Dean Malenko.
Yes. And then Rocco Rock took off his mask to become Honest Mario Savoldi and was supposed to wrestle Gary Young. but Nails came out and assaulted both men before the match could begin.
If one more person had no-showed, we could have got the return of Colonel DeClerc.
Maybe we could. Where the hell was Jack Victory? Why wasn't he on this show? He could have been in 4 matches.
Are we sure he wasn't? Is there a random Russian assassin on there?
I'll be honest, I didn't write down all the results, but I didn't think I saw Jack Victory anywhere.
Well, that's a shame.
But okay, so before we jump into the main event, and something tells me you're already going to go for this. So we're not doing a show on Thanksgiving. And especially because this show is not one that we're going on the anniversary of the day of the show. Obviously we're in October talking about a show from July. We're not matching up to the day on this show. So what my idea was, and like I said, I'm going to guarantee you're going to go for this. This week we did the 31st. Next week we'll do August 7th. The week after we'll do August 14th, which is the same day as Fire on the Mountain. And I looked at the Fire on the Mountain tape, and at the end of Fire on the Mountain, it has the Bullet Bob Armstrong Jim Cornette match from the K-Town Showtown the following week. So I said November 21st, we do Fire on the Mountain 93 as a nice bonus since we're not doing a Thanksgiving episode.
Yeah, awesome.
Sounds good. So that'll be on November 21st. But before we wrap things up, we do have to discuss the ECW Monster Mash Battle Royal. And I was mistaken. I thought it was Halloween, but it's actually October 30th, 2007. I thought Peacock and YouTube fucked up the date, so I went into the calendar to go back in time. And no, October 30th was that Tuesday in 2007. So I was a day off, but hey, it still works.
Mm-hmm.
But the match was the Great Khali with Ranjin Singh versus Mark Henry versus Big Daddy V with Matt Stryker, who is Viscera, for those who don't remember, versus Kane. And this isn't just Viscera. This is Viscera without a shirt on. And you quickly realize why Viscera always wore a shirt.
The world's largest love machine.
Okay.
Because of them titties.
I can't say I was ever a fan of Mabel/Viscera, but I always thought he was a fairly competent big guy. Like, I didn't want him to have like 20-minute matches, but like he could, hold his own to some degree. He was the fucking shits in this match.
Oh my God. He and Kane fucked up a sidewalk slam.
I wrote at one point Big Daddy V did a dance with Kane, and I don't even know what the hell it was supposed to be.
That may have been the attempt at the sidewalk slam.
Possibly. I want to talk about the opening spot of this match. So you have the Great Khali, who's 7'3", 430 pounds. You have Viscera, who's 6'8" and 500 something pounds. You have Mark Henry, who's 400 something pounds. And you have Kane, who's like 6'8", 350 pounds, give or take. The match begins with the three heels menacing Kane in the corner, and Kane uses his superior speed to get out of the way.
Yeah, knowing who Glenn Jacobs is as a person, I felt no sympathy for him. I wish these guys could have got their hands on him.
I didn't have any sympathy for him, but I did laugh at the whole idea of him using his superior speed to move out of the way.
Oh yeah.
And Kane moving out of the way, by the way, greatly offended Viscera and Mark Henry to the point that they began fighting with each other. They collided mid-ring in what I think was the only bump of the entire match. And I guess, hey, it's a battle royal. No bumps in a battle royal. Khali misses a clothesline on Kane that would have missed had Kane been a foot taller than he is. Henry picks up Khali at one point and what looks like a torture rack, but unfortunately got broken up. Um, but thankfully / unfortunately, Viscera was the first person eliminated before the match could truly fall apart here. He takes a running head start, and running is a generous term. But Kane once again uses his speed and avoids the charge before eliminating Big Daddy V to the outside. Khali used the basketballs don't hold grudges head vice on both Kane and Mark Henry. But then Kane and Henry.
I had forgotten that he used to use that fucking thing. Oh my god, the fucking head squeeze.
Well, you need to teach the guy how to not fuck up a move, and it's pretty hard to fuck up a move where you just put your hands on the other guy's head. Like I remember he did the fucking Rey Mysterio, and Rey Mysterio, spoiler alert, he's a small guy. And it just fucking looked deadly because, Rey has a small head.
Yeah, he does.
So it comes down to Kane and Mark Henry, and Kane's the only babyface, and I forgot who had won this match, so I figured Kane would win, but no, he didn't. Kane goes up top or I'm assuming it's a top rope clothesline, but Henry catches him and gives him a belly-to-belly suplex over the top rope for the win.
On the subject of WWE interesting from this era that are fantastic, Mark Henry's 3-6 Mafia theme.
So not Big Daddy V's theme?
I had forgotten about that one, and then I heard it, and I'm like, oh, that's actually that was the best part of the act, honestly.
Not Matt Stryker. I'd forgotten Matt Stryker was even his manager.
Yeah, so it was funny because he came out and I could see somebody was behind him and I could not see who it was because it's fucking Mabel standing there. And they walk all the way to the ring and I'm just trying to see around him to see who this is. And then finally it was Matt Stryker and I was so disappointed.
Poor Matt Stryker. I was more disappointed that he didn't actually do anything. And I'm also disappointed that this was a one-time only thing. I mean, I guess there's only so much you could do, but I mean, like, why wasn't Snitsky in this match with his back knee? Why wasn't fucking Umaga in this match? Like, get all the fucking freaks in this match.
This should be an annual event.
To this day. And I don't even know what freaks they have on the show, but, I'd be all for it.
Give Almost as one booking a year.
There you go. Almost can come out during Halloween like Abaddon does. Hey, has Abaddon done their annual match yet?
They've been kind of stalking Athena building to a match. And then I think there's a Halloween themed match that they taped last week that will air this week.
Oh, but that's on Ring of Honor. I guess
it was billed as a Ring of Horror match.
Abaddon's already limited stock is dropping even further.
Yeah, I don't know. That may have been the best use of them. I don't know. I miss Dark because Abaddon was great at having 2-minute squash matches and hitting that Black Dahlia finisher.
Yep. Then it's like they got a giant roster full of people, and Abaddon is a annual gimmick. Abaddon is the boogeyman of AEW. Oh, why
On
wasn't
the
the boogeyman in
subject,
this match?
yeah, he was on the show. Because there was a segment earlier in the show where Nunzio was dressed as a vampire and he was taking kids trick-or-treating backstage. And they knocked on like a couple of doors, and one was Balls Mahoney, and then it was CM Punk, and then finally the lights got all creepy, and it was the boogeyman, and Nunzio screamed and ran away, and then the boogeyman put worms in the kids' candy bags.
You got to check those worms for drugs and blades and whatnot.
When I
Was
think
that?
of the
Mhm.
when I think of the worst matches I've ever seen live, the one that sticks out was at a house show around this time, early 2008, may have been 2009. Booker T and like I think it was King Booker, even King Booker and the Boogeyman wrestled for 10 fucking minutes, and it was abysmal.
Holy shit.
Oh,
And I thought Jay White versus Daddy Ass was bad.
on the subject of Booker T, the
Mhm.
May 29th, 2000 Monday Nitro from the E Center in West Valley City, Utah, GI Bro defeated Mike Awesome in an ambulance match that went 2 minutes and 44 seconds.
I mean, that's a long time for an ambulance match where they were told to go home with Booker in the go position still.
True that.
Um, okay, what the hell was I gonna say? I'm just gonna say something very. Oh yeah, was that the episode of ECW where Tommy Dreamer dressed like Paul Heyman and no one was allowed to mention it?
Yes, I was so baffled. I'm like, either I don't know, either they're stupid or they've been told not to say anything, and I couldn't decide which. Was Heyman on the
Well,
out?
that
Yeah, because this was like
yeah,
after
the,
December to
December to
Dismember and all
Dismember.
that.
Yeah, I just remember that. Who did he wrestle? Because I thought he wrestled Nunzio, but I guess if Nunzio is
It
getting
was
scared of the
no, it was
boogeyman,
no, it was Nunzio in the vampire costume.
so Nunzio was it before or after he took kids trick or treating?
Right after they did that segment, they did like a little splash page where they plugged ECW.com, and then Nunzio's music played, and he ran out looking frightened and wrestled Tommy Dreamer.
Okay, then that all right. So that does it for this week. Um, Trey, what's happening on the Oh My God cast this week? Are you talking about Tommy
Uh,
Dreamer and Nunzio?
we are not, I imagine in a fantasy world that one day we're gonna get through the entire gonna get through the entire original run of ECW, and then just keep it going and cover WWE ECW. But we'll see if we ever get there.
Talk about the
This
invasion.
week, yeah, this week, um, what did we do? We had a bonus show that went up Sunday because it wasn't the regular show, so I didn't see any reason to wait until Tuesday. We talked about Halloween Havoc 1992, which is kind of it's remembered as a notoriously bad show, and we kind of make the case that a lot of that is unfair and undeserved. It's actually, there are some booking problems, there are some other problems, but all in all, Halloween Havoc 92 is a mostly an enjoyable show. And if you want our full analysis, go and check out the Oh My Godcast at ohmygodcast.com. And then this coming week, the plan is that we're going to do another bonus show because we're kind of because one week there wasn't an episode of ECW TV, and then there was another week that was a clip show. And so because of that, we're actually a little ahead of where you and I are on the Smoky Mountain review, and I'm trying to keep them together. So we're taking a couple of weeks off of the ECW reviews, and we did the bonus show with on Halloween Havoc 92 for Halloween. And then it came up over the course of our last ECW review. We had a little conversation about Joel Goodhart's Tri-State Wrestling Association or Tri-State Wrestling Alliance. And then we thought, well, you can't really talk about the history and the beginnings of ECW without talking about those Joel Goodhart shows. And we were going to see if we could find some, and we did. So this week, the plan is that we are going to review TWA, I think it's Autumn Armageddon 1990.
Nice. So I actually forgot to mention something else. Um, as of the moment we're recording this, now something could obviously change between now and Thursday, but I'm supposed to be on Wrestling Observer Live with Brian Alvarez on Thursday afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific, plugging my book.
Oh.
Yeah.
How about that? That's cool.
So yeah, if that happened, go listen to Observer Live today. If it didn't, well, it's in the works.
Yeah. Awesome. Maybe I'll actually I get like Twitch notifications when they're about to go live, and then I never watch them. So if I see that on Thursday and remember, I'll tune in.
Yeah. It's funny because I'll be working at the shoot job, and I've already told my boss, I'm like, I have a chance to be interviewed. Is it okay if I kind of slip away for about an hour? It's like, oh yeah, sure, go ahead. So yeah. So that'll make life fun. Yeah.
Very
But
very accommodating bosses.
yes, indeed. And but that's gonna do it for this week's show. Hopefully I don't get a call anytime soon asking me about that personal day I didn't take last week. Hope you all enjoy the show, and we'll talk to you again in 7 days.
Bye.